And now, time to get in the huddle with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on the Man of Steel podcast.
Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink. I got you. Let's go.
You get where you feel like you can rush the quarterback. You understand? Yeah. Rush the quarterback. Bangs in for the touchdown, and there's the coup de grace.
Do you have room in the trophy for another one there? You got 6 of them. Now you're the winningest franchise in NFL history.
We'll make room.
Well, let's get right into the big topic of the day. What I wanted to get into with you real quickly. I know you mentioned off to me on the side last week, and I've been licking my chops at this one with you to get into this. Your list for the Pittsburgh Steelers 53-man all-time roster right there. I want to go over with you real quick. I already kind of have my counter list. I want to analyze with you. Let's go ahead and begin things on the offense right now. Let's start off there. Quarterback position, you still tend to give a little bit more leeway to Terry Bradshaw, simply for the fact that he's played on bigger stages consistently, won in big games. I'm going to take Ben Roethlisberger slightly over Terry Bradshaw, because another reason you could also make too, Ben Roethlisberger, he was still developing. He rode a good defense the first time around, but Bradshaw's never had to go all 4 rounds and win a Super Bowl like Ben did. He had the benefit of having the first going for the divisional round, but that was the way the playoff format was. I think the numbers are just way better. I'm going to go with Ben Roethlisberger. You got Terry Bradshaw on there for your first part of the quarterback.
Yep. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, that's apples and oranges. I have no retort. I'm down with that.
And then next up, too, I think we could definitely both agree on, too. You also got for your starting running back, Franco Harris on here. And then I think next up you got Jerome Bettis and then Le'Veon Bell on that one. Real quick, good list. I will say where I will kind of flip the script on you a little bit there too on that one with the roster in that position. So for the offense, I'm gonna say I'll put Jerome Bettis in as a fullback, because he had that body size where he looked built like a fullback. He could run over people, still make his presence. I'm going to still give Franco Harris the number 1 slot. But then following that in their offense, I'll go Le'Veon Bell and then Rocky Bleier for my depth chart running back.
See, I put Bettis I kept Bettis where he is because he never played fullback in the NFL. I know he did at Notre Dame. And actually, funny story, his first coach with the Rams said to him, hey, we'd like to switch you to running back. And once Bettis saw what the running backs made in the NFL versus the fullbacks, he was all for it. So, but I mean, I don't know. Bleier, I like a fullback because he was a threat to run the ball. And he also was a really good blocker. I mean, I'm sure if Bettis wanted to, he could have been a really good NFL lead blocker, but we never saw it. So I didn't want to take that risk. I built my roster. I'm not evolution notwithstanding. I didn't really consider that, but I'm just saying, if I had to build a roster to win a game tomorrow, who am I going with? And this was the roster I came up with based on that.
Let me ask you a technical question. If we had to go back in time, back in '76, when they started off 1-4, I think it was at the time, and they were able to win out, I think, the rest of their games. I think they were 1-3 or 1-4. Anyway, they wound up being
1-4.
Yeah, 10-4 that season. Do you think, let's just say if it was only Rocky Bleier available going to the AFC Championship game in Oakland, you still didn't have Franco Harris. Do you think the Steelers would still have a little bit of a better a slight chance of probably knocking them off and going back to the Super Bowl and possibly three-peating that year if he was at least minimal available, Bleier?
No, I think they needed their complement, and I'm not trying to shortchange Rocky. I just think that because I mean they had 2 other running backs that were pretty good that put a whipping on the Colts because Bleier got hurt early in that Colts game, and I think it was Freshie Fuqua and Reggie Harrison closed out that game, and Franco got hurt somewhere near the end of that game. It was Fuqua and Harrison that last touchdown drive. So I mean they had 2 very capable running backs in that game. And, my dad was actually at the Baltimore game that year that they won in the playoffs to get to the championship game. And it was fun to rewatch that with him, and he said it felt like he was right back in the stadium watching that game. So it was cool. But he and I agree that the Steelers, I think, played that game a little scared. I think they almost felt defeated before they went in there. I mean, they really didn't try very much with their running game. I mean, Oakland smelled fresh blood, and they just went for it. I mean, if they had Franco and Rocky healthy, I would have liked their chances a little more. But like that Oakland team, and as good as Pittsburgh's defense was, I mean, that Oakland team was one of the best teams ever. Like, they lost once that season to New England. They beat New England later in the playoffs. They just ran circles around the Vikings in the Super Bowl. Now they did almost lose to the Patriots in the playoffs, but that New England team was good. Stabler just knew the Steelers' defense so well. I think that was his advantage. Was he called his own plays. He had Gene Upshaw in the huddle to keep him honest if he didn't really like what Stabler was calling. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think that the Steelers could have done much unless they had Franco and Rocky as a full complement in the backfield.
Next up, we got wide receivers right there. Good retort to that right quick, Brian. So for the receivers, you got starting off, you got John Stallworth, Antonio Brown, Santonio Holmes, then Lynn Swann, Lewis Lips, and Cordell Stewart. And for your slot, you got Hines Ward, Antonio Brown. I kind of went a little bit different on the route of the receiver for the first set of choices. I'm going to still go with Lynn Swann as the number one guy on one of the sides right there. Mike Wallace be my backup to him, and then have Plaxico Burress. And then I would have John Stallworth and Santonio Holmes as your other wideout. Santonio Holmes would back up John Stallworth. And then for your slot receivers, I will go Antonio Brown and Hines Ward.
That's good. I mean, the top guy so you don't have Lewis Lips then, correct?
No, you know what? I guess I'm just one of those.
He was really good. He was really good.
No, he was phenomenal. I guess I tend to have like a little bit more loyalty to like Howard's team, and then like some of Knowles. I mean, just what he had to deal with and what he had to build over time. Don't get me wrong. I think Lewis Lips was a phenomenal one.
You got to also consider that Lips had Mark Malone. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, he didn't have the best. Mark Malone wasn't terrible, but like you look at all the other quarterbacks these guys had. I mean, even Neil O'Donnell took a team to a Super Bowl. I mean, he was a good quarterback for a time there. I want to say O'Donnell got to at least a Pro Bowl. So I mean, Lips didn't play with a single Pro Bowl quarterback until late in his career. So I mean, and I don't remember much of Lips' career. And he can play special teams. Again, I'm trying to make a whole 53-man roster. I mean, a guy we haven't talked about yet was Cordell. I mean, if I was really going with like the three best quarterbacks in Steelers history, I would go Bobby Lane number 3. But Bobby Lane, but like Cordell he can be a receiver. He can play running back. He could punt if you needed a punter. He was just so versatile. He was such a great, in my opinion, a good pick for this roster. Wallace to me was I don't know, like good player. I mean, these picks aren't bad, but like Wallace is just a one-trick pony. He just went deep, and he came up a little short in the Super Bowl when it was his time to shine. And then he left prematurely. And I almost left Holmes off the list for the same reason. He left prematurely, but when he was there, he had such a big role in that Super Bowl team. You can't take Santonio off the list. And the only guy that the Steeler, and Plesko was too inconsistent. That's why I left him off. But the guy that I wanted to put on, but I couldn't, was Thigpen. I thought Thigpen was physical, tough. He could make the big play. He had really, really good hands. It hurt me to leave Yancey Thigpen off the list. I really wanted Thigpen to have the spot on this list. Main reason why I didn't, he only had 2 really great seasons. And he left prematurely. But, 7 years, I think, with the Steelers, only had 6 or 7 years. Only had 2 really big seasons, which is why I left him off.
And I will go back just one more time on the quarterback. I don't know if you heard me on this part, but the guy backing up like better than Terry Bradshaw, I would swap Cordell Stewart with Neil O'Donnell, personally. I mean,
I can't get over his Super Bowl pick.
I understand.
I can't get over it.
I understand that, but I gotta admit though, too, looking at that timeline, when you had like a long gap, you're dealing with guys like Mark Malone, like Bubby Brister, Tom Zach. I'm just saying, I think Neil O'Donnell in some way was somewhat of a bridge. I mean, before Ben Roethlisberger came to the picture.
He was fine, but he had maybe the worst, like, man. Listen, not just that, the 94 AFC Championship game, that debacle at the end, and it's not all him. I'm not just, the AFC Championship game, they almost don't win in 95 because he throws the ball into Quentin Coryatt's hands, and Ernie Mills has to punch the ball out. Like, they almost lost that game. I mean, those 2 throws are just, they're so inexcusable. Like, I still to this day think he threw that game because every time the Steelers every time they were down by 2 possessions, he played like he was possessed. He played like he was Joe Montana. Every time they had a chance to take the lead, he turned into like Daffy Duck. Like, he just couldn't throw to an open receiver.
Wow.
He couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. He couldn't throw a seashell into the ocean. Like, he just was awful. Like, those 2 throws are just so inexcusable. And it cost them a ring. And I mean, yeah, I know Cordell absolutely fell short in those AFC Championship games, but nothing like that. I've never seen 2 throws more horrific in one game by one person across a team that much. I cannot get past it.
Well, that's kind of why. That's a little bit why I'm hesitant having Lewis Lips on the team. I mean, for there. But at the same time, too, I think a lot of credit to – we'll wrap up the offensive line. We'll get straight to the point. I mean, we can definitely pretty much agree, like, on the tight ends right now. Heath Miller, Elby Nickel. The only thing I would swap for Elby Nickel, I'll put in Benny Cunningham in there. I'll swap him for that.
I'm not a Cunningham guy because he was just injured all the time. And, like, I thought, a guy that nobody ever talks about, Randy Grossman. Why is Randy Grossman a touchdown catch in Super Bowl 10, played very well in Super Bowl 13. He never gets talked about. Like again, Benny Cunningham was flashy and number 1 pick. And again, I respect every pick you're making. I just disagree on these things. But like Randy Grossman, if I had to pick a Steelers tight end from the 70s, I'm picking Randy Grossman like every single time. But it's all good.
All right. So the offensive line, we can definitely get into it another time. I see the people we got right on there, but let's cut to the meat of it on the offensive line. You got, as your center, still Mike Webster. I'll still go with that. Backing them up, you got Dermani Dawson and Marquise Pouncey. I would flip it and still have Webster as my center, but I would put Marquise Pouncey as a backup and then Dermani Dawson. I understand Dermani Dawson's a Hall of Famer, but at the same time, too, a guy like Marquise Pouncey, he's like only one Pro Bowl away from tying like the all-time Pro Bowl list, I want to say.
Let me ask you this, though. How many times have you heard anybody say that Pouncey could be the best center in league history?
I'm sure a plethora of times.
I've never heard it. When Dawson played, he was considered arguably the best center that ever lived. And I think Bouchette, I read a Q&A, and somebody asked him to pick the conversation we're having, rank them. And he said, with all due respect to Pouncey, he sits behind these two. With all due respect to Pouncey. Like, listen, Pouncey is the third center. I had to include Pouncey because he's that good. And he's a center. Like, that's enough right there, like, love for me that I put him on a list when there's already – I don't need a third center, but I put him on because he's Marquise Pouncey. Marquise Pouncey in my opinion, is like one more Pro Bowl away from being in the Hall of Fame. But Bouchette said he could not. He said Dawson was more versatile, and he said Webster was stronger. He goes, but I cannot pick between the two. I picked Webster because Webster was just a true center, and Dawson, I believe, if there was any center athletic enough to play tackle, I could have Dawson play tackle, and I could play Pouncey at guard, which is why I kept Webster as the starter. One of the reasons.
All right, now let's go over to the defense. Defense right now, pretty good picks on your end right now. As we look at it, we'll speed this up a little bit. But let's start off with the front defensive line, defensive front. So you're going to be having L.C. Greenwood, of course, alongside Mean Joe Green, Casey Hampton, and then Ernie Stautner, Dwight White. Now, here's my only question I would ask you real quickly, and this is why I was going to surprise you for on the show. What defensive scheme are you calling that? Are you going to go with the 4-3 flat base, or are you going to go 3-4? What defensive scheme would you choose?
I would probably do a 4-3 or even a 4-4. I just, it just depends on what. Like in today's NFL, you're using more down linemen, you're using more linebackers. So I to me, I would want LC, Green, Stautner, and White on the field at the same time. In my opinion, that's just what I would want. And then, but again, the way I designed the roster is you can play it any way you want. I mean, that's the way the roster is designed. So if you want to play a 3-4, now obviously this is probably more of a 4-3 because I only have one nose tackle. But Holmes could play nose tackle. I'm not concerned there. But this was designed that you could play really any defense you want.
Yeah, I just, because the thing is, too, technically on the 4-3 defense, you could still put a nose tackle in there unless you're going over-under on like one of your schemes.
For sure.
For the defense lines, of course, you got to have Mean Joe Green. The only thing is I'll do a 3-4. So
yeah,
I'm going to have to, let's see. So I'm going to leave Casey Hampton as my nose tackle. And then for my defensive ends, I'll slide Joe over to defensive end, I guess.
Yeah, and put Stautner at tackle.
Yeah, and then I'll put L.C. Greenwood on the opposite side. But if it's 4-3, definitely have Mean Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, and then for your right side, Ernie Holmes, and then I'll put Cam Hayward in there. I'll throw him in the mix. I'll put him over Dwight White and John Banaszak. I think Cam Hayward is slowly but surely getting better as years go on. As much as he put in a lot of service time in the NFL.
He was a lock for this list, Charles. When I was making this list, he was a lock. I mean, I never really had any debate that Cam would make the list. He's one of those modern-day guys that has just become – he was underrated and undervalued a lot of his career, but once he moved to D-tackle, which is easier to get Pro Bowl recognition, he's definitely gotten a lot of the attention he deserves. So I'm happy for him.
All right, now let's go into one of the favorite parts of the defense, the linebacking core.
This was hard.
Oh, I already got mine. I'll start with mine first then. So let me go on this one. So for the depth at my 2 middle linebackers, so first set of depth in the middle linebacker, I'll go Jack Lambert, James Ferrier. What you got? And then the other one, Andy Russell. So we're on the same page there. So this is where I think where we're going to differ on outside linebacker. So I'm going to have for my right outside linebacker, I'm going to go. I will go the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do James Harrison, Joey Porter, and Greg Lloyd. On the left side, Kevin Green, Jack Ham, and Jason Gilden.
I knew you picked Gilden. So who are you leaving out that I picked?
So let's see. I think Jack Butler's like the only one that's being – no, not Butler. No, I guess we're on the same page. I guess just the ore is just slightly different. Yeah.
You just added an extra linebacker to the mix.
Yeah, well, because like I said, I'm looking at your list. I'm looking at your list, but I'm also interpreting it too, like reading. If I'm coming up with a list, I want to know like what scheme I'm gonna call. So I'm gonna stick with 3-4. They've been using that.
Yeah.
They've been using that a lot more than the 4-3 ever since they had Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, and
Right.
Ever since the end of the original steel curtain defensive line when Mean Joe Green and Elsie Greenwood retired after 1981. They retired the same time as they came in. So ever since then, they've been using 3-4 since the 1982 season. So I think will explain a lot.
Yeah.
Also, corners right now, what we got here. Let's see.
Real quick, I did want to add Shazier because I know his career was cut short, but as it looks, but he would have really offered you a very athletic, today's style inside linebacker. But I still kept Kirkland in there because he was a lot more athletic than people remember. I mean, he played tight end in college. He had 4 interceptions, I think, in the 96 season. So, and I needed to have Joey Porter on the list. Initially, I had Shazier and over Porter, but Joey Porter was such a big part of that Super Bowl team, I had to keep him on the list.
And then for corners, you got Rob Woodson and Jack Butler for your left. For the right side, Mel Blount, Joe Hayden, Carlisle Lake. So for my left corners, I'll go Rob Woodson, and I'll put William Gay behind Rob Woodson and Joe Hayden.
I can't argue with that.
William Gay was just as good as a corner. He didn't have as many interceptions as Rob Woodson, but he was one of the last consistent corners before Joe Hayden came to town. In my eyes.
I have no issues with that. None at all.
And then I will go on the right side. I'll go with 2 people. I'll go with Mel Blount and JT Thomas.
Oh, so over Joe Hayden.
Yeah, and then
I can't argue that. I mean, JT Thomas is a really good player, and this is probably where I'm coming off as nitpicky. But I mean, Hayden not only has a Pro Bowl with the Steelers, which Thomas I don't think did, but Hayden's impact on the Steelers, like you got to remember, and it's not all Hayden, so I'm coming in on that saying that, but the Steelers pass defense in 2015 was 30th. In 16, they were like 18, 19, I want to say, somewhere around there. Like, no, I think 17, 18, still bottom half of the league.
Right.
In 17, they're 5th. Last year and the year before, they were top 5.
Yeah.
So those are the years they had Joe Hayden. So Joe Hayden has really – his impact on the Steelers the last couple of years has been remarkable. So that's one of the main reasons why I put him there.
I tell you what, if you're going to put Shazier in there, I'm going to go all bets are off. I'm going to put Minkah Fitzpatrick in there as free safety.
I'm all for that. I almost did that. I almost did that because if you look at free safety, I want to say Fitzpatrick is their first all-pro free safety. And Darren Perry was awesome. Bill Cowher loved Darren Perry. When I spoke to Bill Cowher in the fall, he loves Darren Perry. And Mike Wagner was really smart too. To me though, I cut it off at you got to give me more than 1 year. But listen, I have no qualms with that because I almost put Fitzpatrick on this list.
Yeah, no, I just like I said, I guess I'm looking at loyalty, but I'm also looking at clutch gene a lot of these guys too. I mean, that really helps significantly change the franchise. And of course, safety, I'll go with Troy Polamalu, Jai Shell, and Mike Wagner. I gotta be honest with you, I was almost thinking about putting Mike Wagner. I had initially had him as a backup free safety for some reason. Mike Wagner, I think, made his share of creating takeaways on defense.
Yeah, I mean, Wagner was a good player and very smart, and had a big interception in the Super Bowl 10. Had I want to say an interception in the 74 AFC Championship game. He came down with some really big plays, and he was he's tough too, really tough player, and I mean, he's an undervalued member of that Steel Curtain defense, and that interception in Super Bowl 10 was clutch. I mean, it was that led to one of their 4 unanswered scores in the fourth quarter of that game.
And let's wrap it up on special teams. I just want to focus on return, man. I'm not going to really put too much emphasis on kickers, those respect.
Well, we didn't do strong safeties, Polamalu, Shell, and Lake.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, okay.
That's okay. I mean, those are three phenomenal players. I mean, it's amazing that Donnie Shell is not starting, but you've got Palomalu.
Yeah.
And Carnell Lake was such a glue. He was the straw that stirred the Steelers' drink on defense in the 90s. I mean, he made the Pro Bowl at safety. He made the Pro Bowl at cornerback. He had 3 sacks in one game. He had 6 sacks in a season. He was the co-leader for the Steelers in sacks one year, 97, with Kirkland. I mean, yeah. Carnell Lake is an awesome player that unfortunately may never get in the Hall of Fame, which sucks. But that's what not winning a ring does. I mean, if they would have won a ring in the 90s, he's probably in the Hall of Fame.
If there's one guy who I would make an argument for that if you want to add one more person from the Steel Curtain that needs to be in the Hall of Fame, I'll go with Andy Russell. Andy Russell needs to be in the Hall.
Yeah, see, I'll go with Greenwood. My dad would probably go with Russell. See, to me, as great as Donnie Shell is, I always thought the pecking order of the Steel Curtain defense was like Green, Lambert, Ham/Blunt. Those were the best 4. And then after that, it was Greenwood and then Shell, maybe. I think what really hurts Greenwood is they didn't count sacks back then. And Russell, it hurts Russell too. They didn't count tackles, sacks.
Yeah.
What did they count on defense back then? Like nothing. Interceptions was like the only thing they counted back then. But it's just a shame because like I think Greenwood, if his actual stats were revealed, like he had 4 sacks in Super Bowl 10. But I can't argue against Russell. Russell was awesome. Just unfortunately the difference between Russell spent half his career when the Steelers were irrelevant. Shell spent half his career when the Steelers were not winning Super Bowls anymore, but they were still relevant. They were on TV, and he was getting some recognition, which was good for his Hall of Fame argument.
All right, now let's go into, like I was saying right there too, special teams. And by the way, so for my punt returner, my guy on punt returns for this one,
if it's not Antonio Brown, don't even bother.
Well, I'll give you one that could probably you could counter that one with. You could probably make an argument for Rob Woodson too. Woodson was just as dynamic, my friend. Woodson was a guy when you watched him not only cover. I'll make an argument that Rob Woodson was probably arguably the greatest corner of all time. You know, he didn't convert to safety until 1999. Those final 5 seasons of his career with the Ravens and the Raiders. Woodson was just so dynamic and what he could do like as a multi-threat on returns where it's kick or punt returns. I think it was more so punt returns, but also too, Rob Woodson is the number 1 leader in total takeaways on defense in NFL history. Number 1 on that list with 103 total takeaways.
You know what you've done, Charles? I'm going to go in actually and make that change as we speak. Because you're 1,000%. You're at that. Well, no, you're right. I mean, I came in with a 2 of a kind. You came in with a full house. So I mean,
but either way, I don't think.
My hat's off to you.
But Antonio Brown, let's not slight him on special teams either. He was dynamic in his own right. I think if anything, you could probably keep Antonio Brown punt returns. You could probably just put Rob Woodson on kick return teams.
Well, now they're both on there. So I got 4 punt and kickoff returners. How about that?
But I'm saying though, but what I'm trying to say to you is like you keep one on one or the other. So I'll probably do Rob Woodson on kickoff returns, Antonio Brown on punt returns. Antonio Brown is, with his respect, he was lightning in the bottle too on punt returns. Just watching him.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
It was just exciting. All right, so real quickly, so this one thing I want to close with you real quick. I've been asking a lot of people on this real quickly. So since you're doing NFL, let's keep it with NFL. So I posed a question to people. If you had to choose your dream team broadcast for the NFL, I say with North American sports, but since we're on the NFL, I'll keep it in here. If you had to watch your favorite team, game on the line, with playoff berth, win in the playoffs, or a conference championship or a Super Bowl, all the stakes, you had to choose, you had the luxury of choosing who the broadcast team, you wanted to call your game. So I want to know who'll be your play-by-play announcer, your color analyst. Would you have 2 color analysts to make a 3-man booth? Who'll be your sideline reporter? And who's your pre- and post-game host for your studio analyst?
Oh, my gosh. You
I
should
got
ask
mine. I
me
want to
this.
hear yours.
So you're saying like my favorite one, or I can cut them up from any point in.
So I'll give you mine. So this is why I
Go
had to do it. And
No,
then
I
want to know what.
think I know. I think I know, but I would rather. I'll hear yours first.
Okay. Because I also want you to choose a network, what station it's going to be on. So I'm going to have mine.
Oh,
ABC.
NBC. No, I'm a CBS man, but
Nice.
I'll go with NBC. The 90s NBC broadcast was just awesome. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I grew up with NFL on NBC, so I'm sorry. That's
all right.
my pick. Might get me fired, but that's all right.
I'm going to go with ABC Sports. Al Michaels is my guy as a football fan. And more instead of 2, Steelers been 2-0 in Super Bowls under Al Michaels. That's another reason to give him extra praise. So I'm going to go with Al Michaels because he's got to be on ABC Sports. If ABC Sports comes back, I got to have back Al Michaels on ABC Sports for prime time. Give me John Madden. And then another one who I liked over time was Dan Deardoff. So I'm going to have a 3-man booth. Al Michaels, John Madden, Dan Deardoff. I'm going to throw over to my silent report, interviewing the players on the field, Pam Oliver. And then my studio analyst for pre- and post-game, I'm going to have James Brown, Bill Cowher, Michael Playmaker Irvin, and Howie Long. That's my dream team coverage for my Steelers.
I still do not have my – you know what? All right, I think I can do this. I mean, it's pretty much – okay. So I want – all right, I'm going to keep it simple. I love Summerall Madden. Love Summerall Madden, and I love the 90s Monday Night Football group. Love those. I mean, we grew up – I mean, I'm biased, but I think the 90s had the 3 best teams at one time ever in booths. I mean, the Monday Night Football booth was unbelievable with Gifford, with your boy – and Michaels and Deardorff, like awesome group. And then Madden Summerall. But my favorite one ever is Dick Enberg at play-by-play.
Nice.
Phil Simms as first caller, and Paul McGuire as the third guy in the booth.
They were a good daytime group.
They were good anytime group. They were great. I love like Super Bowl 32 when they're like that. I just thought it was like and they 97, they covered a bunch of Steeler games. Like they did Steelers Broncos in week 15 when Cordell went nuts. And then they did the very next
Steelers Patriots game late in 97 on Twitter before the
start. It was very next week.
Last year.
It was very next week. Yeah. I mean it, and I just thought they complemented each other really well. And McGuire sometimes and Sims fought like a married couple. McGuire, if you rewatch Super Bowl 30, starts really ripping Ron Earhart for not opening things up. And it was hilarious. And Paul McGuire loved Levon Kirkland. I don't know any player, like I know that like Madden loved Favre, but Paul McGuire loved Levon Kirkland. It was funny. And so sideline, I mean, I'm a Jim Gray guy. I like Jim Gray.
Okay.
I like Michelle Tafoya, so I would go Michelle Tafoya for the other one.
Nice. Okay, so you got 2 people here. Nice.
Well, what was that thing they had on Monday Night Football where they had what was that thing that they had on the field that they had their one analyst do? The Mobile or something, or the
Madden Cruiser or whatever, the Man Bus.
I don't know what it was. I'll have to. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I want to find a place for Madden, but I can't. So I've got Enberg, I've got Sims, I've got McGuire, I've got Gray and Tafoya, and then I would probably go Suzy Kolber. I really like Suzy Kolber as like my host. Even though I like Greg Gumbel, I love Greg Gumbel. Maybe they'll share it. Maybe they'll share duties. So we'll have 2. It's going to be a little unorthodox. We'll have Suzy Kolber and we'll have Greg Gumbel. And then I want Cowher. I want Cowher and Jimmy Johnson. So I want 2 coaches.
Nice.
Now give me 2 players. This is where it gets tough because I don't really care about there's not really an ex-player. Collinsworth. I actually liked Collinsworth when he was in the studio. And maybe Shannon Sharp. Maybe give me Shannon Sharp in there. So you've got, I don't know, like maybe even Ray Lewis. Like give me a guy in the trenches. So, you've got Ray Lewis. You've got almost every perspective there, except for running back. Because I like Kurt Warner on NFL Network a lot. But I'm done with that. I'm done with that one.
Who's your main host in the studio then?
What?
Who's your main host that's kind of keeping everybody in order then? So would you go like
Gumble and oh no, I gotta blow things up real quick. I'm gonna reboot for a second. We're gonna slow down. So you got Gumble and Colbert. Susie Colbert will do like pregame and postgame maybe or something like that. And Gumble will be thrown in there. I like Brian Gumble too much, so he's got to be in there. And then I got Johnson and Cowher, so I love both of them. I can't pick. I really like Steve Young.
Yeah.
I'm a big Steve Young guy. And I like Randy Moss too. So I guess my fifth guy, I'm leaving the fifth guy open because I would want a defensive player, like a defense. Who's the best defensive player now in the media? It's probably an easy thing, and I'm not thinking about it. I like Michael Irvin a lot too, and I like Steve
I'll probably
Smith.
say Ty Bruschi, to be honest with you, or
I'm on board with Bruschi.
Or Rodney Harrison.
Rodney Harrison is way too confrontational. And I really like Dungy, but he never, in my opinion, says much. So yeah, I'm good with Bruschi. No, Willie McGinnis, done. Case closed, done. Willie McGinnis. I love Willie McGinnis on NFL Network. We're done. That's it. That's my group. Thank you for walking me through that.
Nice. Well, that was an awesome host right there. Definitely smashed that one. But Bryan, I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining here. Pleasure having you here on the Men Steel podcast again. Thanks again for that ridiculous wait time. I do apologize for that.
Oh, it's all good, man.
Having some internet issues, but getting it solved. But glad to have you here on the Zoom. How you like the experience so far on here?
I like it. As you can see, I look like Roger Goodell in the third round right now, so I'm comfortable and it's all good. So yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure doing the show with you, talking Steeler football. It's always fun, man. And I'm glad we talked about our rosters, and you made me think about my all-time broadcast group, which doesn't include me. So that needs to change. But yeah, man, I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for having me.
Nah, but I will say this in closing. I do feel like there's going to be a season somehow. Sports are going to continue somehow. My thing is, I know a lot of people are skeptical, like, why are these people playing with health? But unfortunately, COVID now, if it's telling us anything, it's kind of like triggering an alarm. Unfortunately, an alarm's going to trigger every now and then, and we're going to have to find a way to just bring other people on board available. I mean, of course, they got their options, not play. I mean, it's their discretion, but there's too much at stake in each league with their CBAs and leverage to be lost, players and executives. I just feel like they'll find a way to survive. I mean, it's either that or you're going to be in shambles somehow. Some heart's going to be broken. You never know.
Yeah, man, we'll see. I mean, it's we'll see. I think I'm hoping for the best, but I'm preparing for the worst, and that's kind of been my mentality. I can't control if a season happens. Nobody can. We can all social distance and play our small part and wear masks when we're out in public, so we can still do that. But I just think in general, it's important to try to stay optimistic and also understand that you might get your football, but it might be different. It'll probably be different. We might not have fans in the stands. We might not have a full season. I would not expect much from the rookies. So yeah, if I'm doing fantasy drafts, I really wouldn't be looking at rookies. I could be wrong. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough. But you know what? Until they say the season's canceled, I'm going to assume that it's not.
Agreed. All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, Bryan, for joining here. Once again, you can follow that man on Twitter and Instagram at Bryan DeArdo. You can follow myself on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey at OnDeckCSR. For the Men Steel podcast, it is simply at Men Steel CGR on Twitter and at Men Steel Nation on Instagram. And as we always leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. And Bryan, look to hopefully do this again when you have a convenient time. Thank you so much, my man.
Oh, anytime, Charles. My pleasure, man. Stay safe. We'll talk again soon.
Likewise. You have a good night.
You too, buddy. See ya.
Bye-bye.